Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 330.
Oh yeah, 330.
Okay, guys. Yet another Smash-like fighter has been revealed.
No, it didn't.
I feel
is
like
this all we ever talk
Different
about?
topic.
It's not, but I feel like they're late to the party, right?
They are, because Smash sucks.
What?
Next topic.
Okay,
Listen.
take.
It's called Multiverses, which is a bad name. It is an upcoming free-to-play crossover fighting game developed by Player First Games and published by Warner Bros., featuring various characters within the Warner Bros. Catalog, including some characters, superheroes from the DC Universe, Bugs Bunny and Taz from Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
I would play as Taz. Let's be real.
Shaggy and Velma from Scooby-Doo,
No.
See,
No.
and even
It's
Finn and Jake from Adventure Time.
it's a gimmick game, just like the Nickelodeon one.
But
yeah.
the voice actors are involved.
Better than the Nintendo one, but still a gimmick game.
Still not a
no.
good idea.
I don't see the point.
Think about the various characters that are owned by Warner Brothers that could potentially be in this.
So
Do you know if the Animaniacs have made the cut?
They have not yet. No.
top tier Warner Brothers characters.
Then I don't
yeah.
care.
that I
Why
would want
aren't
in
They're
there.
they
the only
in it?
characters
Yeah.
in this kind of game I'd
They
want to
make
play.
the most sense. But okay, so Batman's gonna be fighting Velma. Is that what
Yes.
you're telling me?
In the trailer, Batman and Shaggy are teaming up
That
together.
is. I gotta watch the trailer. That's ridiculous. You know
It
that,
is
right?
ridiculous.
Okay.
Yes.
As long
yes.
as we all are on the same page. Stop making Smash fighters.
Okay, but I would say this because there are some fans that are trying to band together and ask for Tony Soprano to be the next character. That's
Bro, that's.
No.
I am faith restored in humanity.
Wait,
I will
Nolan, it's
sign
here now?
that petition. I will dude, Tony solos all of them. He pulls out an AK. Oh my god, that'd be so sick, dude. I forget. Wait, that's a Warner Brothers property.
Yeah.
I think HBO when I see that. Oh my gosh.
It is currently in closed alpha, and so you can sign up and potentially be able to get involved in the early days of this game.
Hey, if they want to
But
send us a
should
code,
you?
we'll play it and we'll make a video about it.
But other than that, yeah, I agree, Kenny. I'm not interested. It doesn't sound like either of you are either.
Of course not,
No.
sir.
No thanks.
If I do end up playing it, I'm going to try out Bugs Bunny because with him gnawing on his Kakarot will be a good fighter. So
Stop recording.
Oh, no.
Stop.
Look,
Export MP3.
I'm just saying that
Close
it would
PC.
be fun.
Stop. I'm wildly uncomfortable now, and I was already uncomfortable before.
All right, let's go. Cool. Like in our retro game of the week, Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors 2.
Overview.
Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors 2 is a Nintendo DS title. Came out in 2005. It was published by Atari and has an expanded roster from the first game, Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors, but probably not as big a cast as, I don't know, any other larger game with a bigger cast. I don't know where I was going there. 13 playable characters. I'm
Yeah.
getting
Only
so much
13?
judgment right now. Yeah, well, 13... No, 13 characters from the original game and then 2 new characters, rather. You get Cooler and Broly, who weren't in the first game.
Bro.
To be fair to Kenny, like most modern fighters do have like 50 plus playable characters.
Right,
Like,
that,
it's
I mean,
true.
that's what I was thinking. And the Dragon Ball world has tons of characters. I don't know if they're all fighters necessarily, but
Yeah,
Sure.
to,
there's...
to be even more fair, if you didn't know we have TikTok content, go check us out on TikTok. I was about to reference some stuff we'd recorded specifically for that, and realized that the reference wasn't going to make sense because we just started the podcast and it didn't matter. So it was my bad, but go check us out on TikTok while you're here. We'll come back to Dragon Ball Z, though. 15 playable characters, a bunch of villains as well as a host of support characters, which we'll get to what that means a little bit as we get further into our gameplay section in a bit. And you get pretty standard Dragon Ball Z fare, which I'm going to talk about as if I'm an authority and have no idea. So
please do.
Go ahead and forgive me preemptively when I mispronounce names and everything like I did in the first play this week.
During Kenny's first play, he pronounced Saiyan as Saiyan, which, listen, if you don't have experience with the series, I understand you getting a lot of these names wrong because they're not your normal American names. But the interesting thing is, and Nolan, you for sure know this, I would assume.
What?
But that a lot of the names in the Dragon Ball universe are connected to vegetables, right? Like, you know that, or like silly words. I mean, like Trunks, obviously.
Swim Trunks.
Has to do with Swim Trunks. But like Kakarot is either the word for carrot or related to carrot. Broly is
broccoli.
What? Broccoli, maybe? No,
I don't know. Piccolo is an instrument.
Piccolo's pickles. Oh, yeah, but also pickles.
Pickles, sure. Okay.
There's Vegeta is straight up vegetable, so like they all have connections.
That's
there.
actually the first I'm hearing about that, but I guess
really?
You're right. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's absolutely
That's
true.
funny.
So y'all are going to have to give Kenny some grace this episode because he knows. I think his Dragon Ball experience was the game we played 3 years ago on the podcast, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout.
Has to be.
Yeah, that might be the entirety of my knowledge. I've seen like 14 seconds of an episode, and I think, nothing that actually counts to give me any knowledge of this series. So forgive me in talking from my ignorance. But it seemed like, and you guys can correct me since you're DBZ fanboys, it seemed like you got fairly typical story fare here in terms of the Dragon Ball universe. Fast-moving action where suddenly you're fighting one of your friends and then you're saving the world and then you're fighting a supervillain all in like 30 seconds time, and not in any way that I can succinctly sum up because there are so many stories going on. But the main way to play this game is a story mode where you get to go through the main cast of all of the big name characters and play a story that's mostly, every once in a while you'll have somebody, like tap in and do a fight on your behalf for some story beat reason, but where you mostly play that character through a series of events that are all real events that I think have already happened in the Dragon Ball universe, mostly. A couple of interesting exceptions there that I think will be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So I do want to, before we go on, talk about the Nintendo DS a little bit, because that's the travel console, that's what we call them, that has the two screens and one of them is a touch screen.
Yes.
It's another handheld console that I didn't own growing up.
Huge deal when it came out.
Is it offensive / wrong for me to say that I adore almost every GBA game that I have experience with, and I abhor a lot of the DS games? I don't like playing on the DS.
I mean, if you're painting with that broad a stroke, maybe, and
that is a thin stroke.
Part of why you struggle is because the DS is such a beast to emulate. Like, you're not playing it on the actual hardware, and so there's just hurdles that you have when you try and play this, years in the future, if you're not sitting there with an actual touch screen, using your finger, hitting the interactive buttons, and that was certainly a reality we had to face with the game this week as well.
What are the other DS games that you played, Dustin?
Like on the podcast?
Many. No, just in general, because you said
we played the super-powered surgeon game. where you
Certainly
did
not
voodoo
what it's called.
stars.
Yeah, the
You did voodoo
superpowered
stars to save
surgery.
people's life with magic heart surgery.
Voodoo scars
Yeah, he's
or
right.
stars? Trauma
Stars.
center.
Trauma
It
center.
Yeah.
has nothing to do with Supersonic.
Sure it
Supersonic
does.
Surgeon 2. I think that's the only one we've played on the podcast. The only other
Yes,
DS
it
game
is.
we played on the
It is.
podcast.
Yeah.
And I liked the game. I liked the concept of it. I think Kenny's onto something in the sense of like just trying to emulate it today is
Well,
probably
sure.
more difficult. But even
Yeah.
like even the games that I played off of the podcast, and I don't even know which ones on the DS. There hasn't been many, admittedly. They don't look as good, feel as good, sound as good, play as good as the Game Boy Advance games.
I won't disagree with you on that, actually. I played a lot of DS. I had it growing up. Awesome console, huge library of games, and plenty of good
Do they,
ones.
though? Like what though?
Yeah. Just stuff that you don't know, like stuff that doesn't make sense. They just made so many games. A lot of them bad, but some of them very good. However, it's one of my least favorite handheld Nintendo consoles. And some people swear by it, but for me, it's something about the style and look of them that never like wowed me. So
I have a little bit of a hard time with you hating on it, Dustin, just because our sample size is tiny. We've played way
sure.
more GBA games and only a couple
Yeah, that
of
too, but still.
DS games. I'm sure there's some bangers in there. We should definitely play some more.
And
Sure.
one more clarification. I was a DBZ boy for a brief moment there growing up. You know, coming home from school, there's like a 2 to 4 window that they played like episodes of the show. I liked it. I tried to revisit it in college and hated it. So that's my current stance on DBZ and current experience with it.
And my experience is I had none as a kid. It wasn't here yet. And when it was here, I was a little bit too old, or so I thought. And so I think my younger brother watched some of it. And then in recent years, maybe 5-6 years ago, I wanted to get some general understanding. And maybe it was closer to 3 years ago when we played the game. I don't remember. But I watched a few arcs of Dragon Ball Z, the adapted version. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but they did one where it cuts out episodes of fluff.
all the filler. Yeah.
All the filler. And enjoyed it, but it's just it's a different thing. I think it requires a certain kind of palate or taste.
Gameplay.
Story mode is clearly the reason to play this game. You can go through a campaign with the big hitters from the show, like ones that you recognize and that you would want to absolutely play as and fight against, through scenarios that Kenny had mentioned have happened. It's a lot of what if scenarios. Like it's almost like fan fiction and like fan servicey kind of stuff. A lot of it is from the show, sure, but some of it's just like new interactions and dialogue that fans would have absolutely eaten up when this came out. The story mode is like the shiny thing in this game to do, in my opinion.
I think, yes. I think if you played it back in 2005, that the versus battle would have been fun to be able to link up with a friend and battle each other.
Absolutely. That's huge. On a handheld device too, you bust it out after school and like link up and play together. That's big.
You don't get to do that as easily today. So story mode would be pretty much why you're playing this game. And it's a battle game. There's no other thing that's happening in between except a little bit of exposition outlining a little bit of the story. But honestly, if you don't know the story, or even if you do, it is incredibly difficult to follow.
Yeah.
Because
it really is.
Like sometimes it will skip years. Sometimes it will just say this major battle happened or this major character died, rather than, and there's no animation. It's often on a black screen with white text. Just telling you what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you go into your next battle.
And there's a lot to keep up with in the show already. So yeah, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm just gonna go with it.
This
but
show's
sure it makes
already
sense to
felt
somebody.
crazy.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there was a skip button, so you could skip a lot of the dialogue, or like, because again, one, if you don't know anything about Dragon Ball Z, you're not going to know more about it after this game, because it's not to try to explain or teach or walk you along. And if you do know Dragon Ball Z, like I said, you might even already be confused, and you should know enough of the story to be able to skip that and just get to the battles, because that's what you're here for anyways.
I mean, I did read through all the story beats because I was trying to stay up to speed. And again, I'm not familiar with the story. And I walked away from the game understanding less than we started with, because it's so fast-paced. And they do these wide, like crazy arcs of stories. I've always felt like Dragon Ball Z, and I don't mean this to be offensive. It just, there's some similarities here. So
yes,
forgive me beforehand. I've always felt like it was like anime soap opera for boys, in terms of like
accurate,
big, crazy, wild, out of the blue stuff, and like fast paced, and then always the new craziest thing happens that you didn't think could even happen. So it was impossible to follow this story from this game.
And that's okay though, because the story it's not the focus, in my opinion. It is so. I mean, it is like the show, though, in that it's extremely, like, bland and, like, very, like, it's not, like, amazing writing, and even the arcs, we're calling them arcs, are so simple. It's just a big battle that extends for 60 episodes that has very little consequence. They pretend like it's a big deal, but, like, that is in here, but you don't need to care. Like Dustin said, you can skip and, like, just get back to the action. I think that's fine for people that aren't like super into the DBZ story. Soap opera.
The story is basically set up to get the two characters they want to fight onto the same screen at the same time so that you can fight. Because this is a fighter game.
Yeah.
The thing that is different about this game than the anime is that, Nolan, you said that the battles take 60 episodes, and some of them might, honestly. I mean, they take a long time. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 episodes just to charge up a Kamehameha. But
literally,
in this game, the battles are 30 seconds. I don't know if y'all felt this or had the same complaint as me, but the battles were so brief.
It's fast-paced,
Very quick.
Which... the movement and combat should be fast-paced. I think that is in relation, but maybe just the health bars were so, like, these characters felt fragile. I could do 3 or 4 attacks and finish an enemy, or they could finish me in 3 or 4 attacks. Like, it's just about charging up. Let me take a step back and actually explain the battle system. So it's
we need to.
Flying combat 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any ground combat.
I don't think so.
And it's in a 3D kind of environment. It doesn't really matter. It's for the look.
But it's a 2D fighter, though.
2D fighter in a...
Yes,
but
it's a vertical 2D fighter. You're flying. You're not just going on the X-axis. You're also going on the Y-axis.
Yeah, and so... And so you can have up to 3 party members that you can sub out, like in a lot of these fighting games. And at times you can use 1 or 2 of those characters to do these to do team arts, where it's using them as support characters to do an attack. And that's when the touchscreen comes into play, because that you use your touch screen to sub in or to use team arts. And other than that, it's really just about like contextual position-based move sets. It's where you are on the play field, corresponding to where the enemy is, and you tap a button and it does a certain move. It's not Street Fighters where you're trying to like do these combos. It's really just you learn really a couple of different button combinations, and then you place yourself in a position to use that with enough energy. It's 2 things: energy management and positioning, and then you press the button and do the damage.
And the arenas are large, like much bigger than a typical fighter, like because it's vertical and you can like create a lot of distance from your enemy, but like you're also jumping around. And the controls in fighting games, I always talk about this, is so vital. And on the DS, it's problematic. I didn't play it on a physical DS, but I know what a DS feels like, and the tactile nature of those buttons to me wouldn't give me enough confidence to like fight if it would have been a normal fighter. Like you said, this is a mash equals win type of fighter. Case in point, Kenny's in the first play actually kind of winning pretty hard. Like,
yeah, I did great.
You did great, and that's normally not the case. And so you can, it's not like you have to know your character's like major combos and strings. It's not strings. It's literally just press buttons and yeah, win. And win quickly. I did feel that, Dustin, back to your original point. I felt like they were short, maybe half the length of, let's say, a Street Fighter match. And there's variance there, give or take. But, like, yeah, it was just fast-paced, but it kind of fit because you're a Saiyan and you're moving quickly. I don't know. I thought it was noticeable, but not, like, a negative per se.
It is interesting because while the fights are the focus of the show, the fights are so long and drawn out that it's almost like they kind of went the other direction here. But it did make me feel like my characters were strong, which is part of the point. Like, once you've gone super and you're fighting, you should feel like you're dishing out some crazy damage. And it does feel that way here. And I know some people will miss the typical fighter, elements of, like, I want these crazy complex button combos so that I can, I don't know, beat up on my younger brother who can't figure them out and feel superior or something. But I don't like that about fighting games, and so this one actually felt really welcome, where it was more positioning, more thinking about controlling my energy and when to power up and when not to, and it was a kind of sweet spot for like my enjoyment of a fighter, but without the complexity of some of the normal fighters.
I wasn't thinking. I turned my brain off. It was that kind of game.
Smash buttons.
Yeah, literally.
Was there any character that you enjoyed playing or going through their story or anything like that?
I've always been a fan of Trunks. He gets really cool as an adult, like later in the show. But Vegeta is probably my favorite character in the whole thing. So I like Vegeta, just kind of the heel of the show, but like a very important character. There was no discernible difference in their stories. You know what I mean? So it was just like, I'm playing as Vegeta. Cool. Let me mash more. So
in their stories or in like how they handled their gameplay?
Kind of both. They did have slightly different gameplay, but again, I wasn't changing up my strategy. It was just it looked different than the other characters. So that's yeah.
And that's what I felt too. I felt that the characters, it really didn't matter who you were playing because you're pretty much playing the same character all the way through. They look different, but they play identical.
Yeah. Right.
Kenny, try to pronounce the character that you played most or liked.
Their moves are slightly different. I played Piccolo, and for good reasons. Partly because it was the thing that I felt like I could most safely pronounce when I was doing the first play and didn't want to embarrass myself. And partly for whatever reason, that the little bit of DBZ sort of experience I've had, I've always felt like he was a cool character. I don't know if it's the look or what it is, but I thought he was neat. And then once I got through that, I wanted to kind of experience, a more true type of the game. And so I went back and just played through the Goku story as well because, like he's the main guy, I guess.
I started with Goku because he's the main guy, I guess. And then once I opened up a few characters, I went and played as a character that I saw in theaters, Brawly.
Brawly? That movie, yeah.
I went and saw it in theaters.
That's so funny that you did that.
And there's a new one coming out in theaters sometime soon, and I'm going to go see that too.
It's not live action, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
There was always rumors that they would do that, and it was such a bad idea.
It's such a bad idea. No, it's another animated. I don't remember what it's called. It's like super. I don't know.
Duper guys in the sky.
Super duper. But I go watch them because I've got a friend and then my brother that has some Dragon Ball love and history.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. It's fun.
The other modes are kind of cool. I feel like the team battle one feels kind of big for the time of release. Like being able, and there were other games, Marvel versus Capcom did this, the second one in particular that was like super popular where you rotate out. But this one, being able to do the like group attacks felt epic. Like a lot of like that's so on the nose for fans to be able to see that, because in the show they fuse together in the show and become powerful, but like just the big hits were always pretty cool. Interesting that one of the only uses of the touch screen is to trigger that. Like,
Yeah.
I expected a lot more, which I don't know why it did. Fighting game, how do you even do that? But this is one where it's just like you touch your super to get it to activate. But I did think that was a nice touch, and there were other modes too. Like they didn't just do the story mode; they allowed you to do the others. Although I do think, or I've heard and read that the connecting to other DS mode had some issues, like not
Connectivity issues.
Connectivity
Yeah.
issues. So that sucks. But
That's a big drag. It's a big drag when that's a part of what you want to do with the game, for sure.
A
Yeah.
big drag gun ball.
Ball.
see,
They did have a nice practice mode. I know we rarely talk about that, but I actually went through the whole practice mode because it does teach you, I mean, bit by bit. Like, it's literally like, hey, this is how you fly, so fly in this one. Or this is how you, like, get close to your opponent, so get close to your opponent in this one. So they're very quick, but it does help. It does go through. It is interesting, though, because it goes through every one of the move sets, but you can finish that practice set, the whole practice thing, in about 10 to 15 minutes. Which means that's all that you need to know to be able to play the game and every character in the game. Again,
right.
Look, Kenny, I'm with you. I don't need complex movesets that you have to learn. I hate playing Mortal Kombat games because of that. Because I feel like I have to pause and look at that character's stuff every single time if I want to do something. Because that character is completely different than every other character. I don't like that. I don't like that, but I also don't like this alternative of nothing's different, do the exact same thing, and place yourself in the exact same position, and you're going to get similar results. I want something in the middle. And
It's
Smash is in
fairly
the
simple.
middle.
You're right, Nolan.
Yes.
You are right.
They
It
do
is.
a good job.
I would argue that might be on purpose, though, because I know it's not strictly, but given these characters and who a large portion of the fan base is, this is kind of a kid's game.
That's a good
It's
point.
not a kid's game. It's not a series just for kids. Again, I'm not trying to be offensive. You're fine to be a fan of DBZ, but it needed to be something that was accessible to all of the younger fans.
I think that's a good point.
Cop-out.
You don't think so?
Cop-out.
I think that was absolutely a intentional decision on their part.
Well, it was an intentionally bad decision. I like bringing up Smash, and I mean, relating games to the crowning achievement is tough. But like, because there, if I'm correct, your strong down, I don't know if that's a thing, but like that's the same button configuration on every character, but the potency or like how the uniqueness of it
Or the
varies
utility
from
of it.
character to character,
Yes.
or the utility of it. And this one, it didn't have different utility or different really strengths. It was just like, hey, this is this attack. This is
Powerful,
this attack.
cool looking move.
Is-
Insert depending on character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aged.
We already talked about it, but it's worth mentioning. DS games, unless you're playing them on original hardware, aren't super future-proof, and I struggled with that this week a lot.
Why?
Because the extra hoops you had to go through to set up, like, linking a button to be the things that would have been the touchscreen, like, presses, just made it feel like all of the coolest features, you're swapping in characters and you're doing your power moves, we're not easily accessible.
You got to use your mouse for that, bro.
Yeah, it's a mouse configuration. I mean, I guess you can hotkey it, right? But is that what you're
Yeah, it
saying?
was
That's
just
not
obnoxious.
the OG? Yeah, okay.
And
Maybe.
on my first playthroughs, until I got frustrated with not having it, I just said, well, forget it. I'll just play the game without. And that's no fun.
I mean, well, in this case, unlike Super Doctor Warrior 2 that we played.
Not.
You're not missing much emulating this DS title.
You're
In
not
fact,
missing anything.
You're not missing anything. I think this one's extremely future-proof in that sense. Sure, I'll give it to you on DS games that heavily utilized it, like a lot of games use the bottom screen as a map, an interactive map, or your items screen. Yeah, you're gonna miss out. But here, it's all top screen fighting.
It wasn't mandatory in the way other touchscreen driven games are, but it was still something you had to deal with that made it feel like more of a hurdle than some. I don't know. It wasn't the worst thing, but the DS is like, it's this little compact thing you're supposed to hold in your hands and touch it and get real like intimate with it. And
what are you doing with your DS?
What are you doing with your DS? Put it down. I think that, yes, it is easier and better to emulate maybe, let's say, the GBA than the DS. But DS is more difficult than that for sure with the touchscreen. You don't miss much here. However, I do think, again, this might not be like even comparable. I think it is because they're both Nintendo consoles and they're both handheld, but the GBA consistently has spectacular, phenomenal graphics. And this Nintendo DS, the graphics here, I didn't enjoy. I thought everything but the character models looked rough, blurry. The backgrounds were not impressive. And the character models were not even that impressive. They were just okay. They were fine. The talking heads were okay, but like, there's nothing that stood out to me graphically here that was like, this is fun to look at.
See, I have a different perspective. I wrote that I think the graphics are quite good. I'll give them that. And I'm basing that off of, I've played again, the DS catalog is massive, but I've played a good portion of them and popular ones that this one looked good. And I, they're not the best graphics. Anti-aliasing or aliasing everywhere, all over the place. A lot of like pixelated areas that just kind of look odd. DS was this era where they were trying to do both of like traditional pixel art and more realistic sprite work and like character models, and it was kind of a weird combo. And I've always had that opinion. However, I do like the look of this game in general. I thought the animations were on point. Like, they felt epic, like they needed to from the show, like going Super Saiyan and doing like Kamehameha waves and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I probably lived somewhere in the middle. I walked away from this game with less respect for the capabilities of the DS. Like, I just thought it looked better than it does. And maybe this game just was actually mediocre and Dustin's right. But I just sort of went like, okay, that was a little fuzzier, clunkier, more pixely than I was kind of hoping for, like fidelity-wise. But I agree, Nolan, that the big animations and the way they did the sprites and the feel of it and like the look and tone of the game was bright and colorful and you felt like you were in these arenas. So the graphics worked for me. But I agree they weren't great. But I think it's more of a hardware issue than a this game issue, however.
If I'm correct, the GBA came out before the DS. It came out 5 years before the DS or something like that.
I would have put money on that being backwards. I guess it's the touch that was the new thing here and not like visual improvement.
It was the capability, yes. That was the shine.
Absolutely.
And the graphics took a seat, I think, for a lot of games.
Yep.
That's not the case for all the DS games, but
yeah, they were adding the new tech stuff, and that's where the focus was. And you didn't get this like huge jump in generational like improvement in the graphics, which is too bad.
Nolan, you might have to speak to this because I don't know if the music comes from the anime. I tend to lean towards it doesn't or whatever, but I think the music is passable at times to bad at other times. I don't think there's anything good or great.
It's super meh. I like the menu music, like choose your character. It's okay, but like the hard rock stuff elsewhere doesn't do it for me. I don't know if it's from the show. It's the same style, at least, like they would play that kind of stuff on the show, but I'm with you. I didn't like the music.
See, I didn't mind it. It wasn't like memorable, but it felt like it fit the game. You know, it was frantic and high energy, and sort of the same energy that I felt like was going on in the game was going on in the music. And so
it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
it's fine.
Michael J, one of our community members, I've mentioned him a few times before. He did a remix of the opening theme.
I need to hear that. It's probably better.
Again, it's the like heavy electric guitar, driving drums kind of thing. So it still maintains that. I think it's better than. I mean, I think it makes it a little bit better than what it was originally. But again, I just don't love this genre and this take on it.
Yeah, I'm with you. The final piece that stood out in terms of aging for me was the story. Like, it's hard for me to gauge it. We've mentioned it a little bit. It's not what the game was like going for in the first place, but it's always been corny AF to me. And like this, it's just like the show, like filler and corn, and like it's not the point. I know the fighting is the point and just the fan service aspect of it, like just getting to be epic with your favorite characters, but it's distracting to me for those in-between bits to like pop up, and then they have some dialogue about some nonsense, and it's like, wait for me to charge up, fight while I, like stuff like that. I'm like, why even have it? Like, I don't know.
One other thing that stood out to me was that, or I looked up this week, it was interesting, and I think it just goes to playability, age, that kind of factor, is that it's impossible to erase your save data in this game unless you corrupt your game's file. So if you ever
super obnoxious.
If you ever wanted to start over, you can't. You cannot. How bad?
What do you mean?
No, that's a huge oversight.
What do you mean?
Well, yeah, you can't.
Like,
if you start,
everything that's unlocked is permanently unlocked.
Permanently.
You can't like sit down with a fresh version of the game, delete your save file and then start the game from scratch doing all those unlocks.
Speedrunners are mad.
You can't go through your character collection again, or your unlocking of the different game types or modes again. You can't do any of that. Once it's done, it's done. So like, if you play this game and beat it and clear it, well, sell it, because you can't do anything else.
Some people might be like, who cares? Why would you want to do that?
Right,
but that's the thing. In Melee, like in Smash Bros., I would do that sometimes. Unlock everything and be like, I love this game. I like playing it by myself. I'm going to delete it and start over. That's a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily a make or break. It's just like, why? Like,
yeah,
you
what?
Easily have different save files or something,
Okay.
So this is the second one in the little mini series. There is a prequel, or the game that came before on the GBA in 2004 called Supersonic Warriors. It's only those two in the Supersonic Warriors, but there are tons of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z games, specifically Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is really the sweet spot of the Dragon Ball universe, I think. Fans didn't love Super, which came out after. Some fans didn't. And the Dragon Ball that came before. Oh, GT. That's the one we played. Dragon Ball GT Final Bout.
Got it. I think that came after Z. I'm not sure.
I didn't realize that Dragon Ball Z wasn't the default. That's how much it's the most popular one. I didn't realize that the Dragon Ball was the part that defines it all. I thought Dragon Ball Z was, this IP. Interesting.
Dragon Ball is Goku as a kid, and I own it on DVD. I actually enjoyed Dragon Ball minus the Z.
Goku as a kid and in his like first competition battles,
yes,
but power level there is like this compared to where you go in Z and beyond.
Yeah, he's under 9,000 at that point.
Yeah, well below 9,000.
Well, he's in the hundreds probably. Okay, so there are a lot of Dragon Ball games, including one that came out 2 years ago called Kakarot. Came out for the Switch and other consoles. And this week, that is the game that I've been primarily playing.
What?
I did not want to play any more Supersonic Warriors 2. But it did spark again the Dragon Ball desire, and so I had heard about Kakarot. It's supposed to be an RPG. It's not really. It's like action adventure. But I hopped in. I am loving it.
I saw someone playing it. It looks cool.
It's this, but far better. There's stuff you can
Yeah.
do in between. You can kind of free roam and travel, which isn't much, but there's some stuff to do there. And it's just following along the Dragon Ball Z story. And it's good for beginners too, because it really like just straight up is like, this is Goku. Goku, like it straight up walks you through, and it is the animated series, but you're playing through it. So if you don't love Dragon Ball Z or don't have any connection to it, it could either be an introduction to you. I think it's a good introduction to the series. If you don't want to watch the whole show, play through it through Kakarot. I know I'm not supposed to be talking about Kakarot right now, but
no,
I
I
really
love it.
enjoyed
I remember seeing it. It looks very fun. It looks very fun.
Just gave up on our game of the week. Come on.
Switched, and it's probably not, well, it's certainly not fair to compare Supersonic Warriors 2 to a game that came out in 2020 for the Switch, but it's a lot of fun. Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors 2 can be purchased for $18 used or $41 new.
Cheap.
Cheap.
Yeah, not bad.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It requires 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I do not think that Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors 2 is the worst Dragon Ball Z game. There is a fighter out there for the Xbox 360's Kinect that is in the Dragon Ball Z universe. But I would say that Supersonic Warriors 2 is not good. It was not fun. I played through a story mode and a little bit of extra, and I think it's maybe a little bit of a fan service in the what if scenarios, or some of this didn't happen, but what if it did, or a different kind of conclusion here or there. But other than that, you're really not getting much here. The battle system, which is what this game is about, is not fun. It's not complex enough to be fun. You can button mash your way through it and win almost every time. Play Kakarot instead. I do not give it my vote for New Game Plus status.
Okay. Of course
I'll
not.
go.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter.
No, you go ahead.
Nolan done gave it away. No, I'll go because I think I'm a little bit of a surprise here. I don't like Dragon Ball Z. It's fine if others do. It's not my cup of tea. I don't like fighting games most of the time. I'm generally bad at them.
This isn't.
I don't think that DS games are super future-proof, and sometimes they frustrate me when we play them. But the fact that this was like designed for people that are terrible at fighting games just sort of hit a weird sweet spot for me. The second dimension, moving up and fighting in two directions, felt novel. It's probably because I haven't done a lot of these. I'm sure there are better games. And yes, I couldn't care for the story at all. But I had fun every time I jumped into one of these silly little fast-paced fights and just like wrecked stuff. And I think there's probably some people out there like me. And so, I don't know. My simple enjoyment of the game transformed over the week into just enough for me to say, I will give it in GP status, but with the caveat, you should only go back and play
Kakarot.
it if you can play it on original hardware.
Allow me to dunk on you.
You're allowed.
Of course not. I like fighting games. Okay?
Yeah.
There's like one good fighting game, maybe two. Tekken 7 and like King of Fighters or something. No, seriously. Fighting games used to be good, and now Tekken 7's like the only good one. I love, unlike you, Dustin, I love the discovery of choosing a character I think is cool, mastering that character, learning movesets, but then you have this other world of all the different matchups and like what's a good matchup for you, what's a bad matchup for you, how do you navigate it, the mind games. I like all that. This isn't a fighting game, and that's okay. Like plenty of other, there are plenty of other DS games to spend your time on, and I think fighting games need the right environment. An arcade or a fight stick or a controller meant for those types of inputs, and DS is not the platform for it. Besides all that, Dragon Ball Z games are just a snooze fest for me. And I know you can L plus ratio, garbage take me, whatever. I know I'm offending people, but it's fine. It's not for me. I hate it. all those were my initial thoughts, and I wanted to still say them out loud. The follow-up to that is I had a realization in writing all this and like playing through. It's not a fighting game, and so I can't hold all those things against it as much as I would. It's a single-player experience for fans to play what-if, fan fiction, mash button stuff, and for that it works, but it's not for me. I'm not giving it New Game Plus, don't worry.
Oh, good.
It's not freaking fun. It's trash, but like it's trash for a different reason than what I initially thought. So
it's not serious business.
No,
it's a Saturday morning cartoon. And if
Sure.
that's what you want, just like a casual game to pick up and just
Sure.
like it be crazy and fast and fun, this might be a game you're interested in. If you want a serious fighter, probably this isn't your game.
No, of course not. It's bad.
Yeah.
So no, New Game Plus from me.
So no from me, no from the guy that owns a fight stick. And then yes from Kenny.
From the one guy that knows
what is
nothing
this
about
episode?
DBZ
Or
and
fighting
kind of
games.
judges it.
Yeah. So Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors 2 is not New Game Plus certified, but what did you think? We had 286 votes on YouTube. 16% said yes, it's worth playing today. 17% said no, and 66% have never played it before.
A rare no rating
Over
higher than a
yes.
yes. That doesn't
Yep.
That's
happen.
rare.
Not surprising.
And then we had many of our community members write in. I'll read a few of those. Dick Matchy said, after hearing this game got drawn for the week, had me pull a little experiment. Before playing Supersonic 2, I replayed every other DBZ game that I had for 30 minutes.
Oh,
each.
okay.
After
Still.
playing Budokai
Booty clap?
Tenkaichi 1 and 3, Xenoverse 1 and 2, and
Kachi
Fighter Z,
6'9"?
it became very clear the vibe and energy of Supersonic 2 has stayed the same. In future DBZ games, the controls, albeit a little clunky, felt pretty good for a 2D DS fighting game for its day, and the graphics were surprisingly tolerable for the time it came out and aged almost beautifully. Nostalgia aside, I could see myself pre-ordering a remake of this game, so NGP for sure. PS, Piccolo Gang for sure, except no substitute.
There you go, Kenny.
Hey, Piccolo Gang and liking the game. Apparently we're the same person.
Pickle Gang.
Kenny's the only one in the Piccolo Gang that was also the only person pretty much that spoke positively.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Kakeo-san said, I'd like to start off my thoughts by saying I have absolutely zero experience with the Dragon Ball series, so I'm certain there are references or callbacks that I won't get at all. So I was curious to see if the game would at least hold up to a fighting game. It does not. Fighting games need mechanical depth to be interesting, and this game falls pretty flat when it comes to that. If a licensed game is truly good, it should still offer fun gameplay behind the references and characters, because if it doesn't, it's a very shallow experience. The music wasn't anything to write home about either. The sprite art was at least okay. Not great by DS standards, but still serviceable. I get that I'm not the target here when it comes to this game, but I think with a fighting game especially, based off an existing property or not, it should offer at the very least, deep or satisfying combat. It didn't. No NGP. It's not the worst thing I've ever played for the podcast, but it's pretty meh worthy.
Shallow is the word I've been searching for all week when I was trying to describe both the story and the gameplay. So yeah, there's not a lot to discover like most fighting games. That's my point.
This game is the kiddie pool, but I don't mind that.
It is
like
a
I'm
kid's
still
game.
going to go in and splash around and have fun, and actually it be less stress to some degree, but that's kind of what you're getting here.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Kenny, a 50-year-old man, is going to the kiddie pool. Garlisle
Call the
said,
cops.
what's that? The fighting game legend Arc Sys worked on a game about fighting anime legend Dragon Ball Z, registered sign TM trademark. Well, of course they did. 2018's Fighter Z was a phenomenon, so it's amazing that the same developer is responsible for this painfully mediocre title. Controls are simple but somehow feel unresponsive, and the melee combat feels more like slap fights than anything with impact or depth. And the build your own custom team sounds neat, but the point system results in stat disparities that feel utterly ridiculous. especially in story mode where you might end up a 1-point character alone against a 5+. At least it captures some of the spirit of the series and plays with some what-if scenarios for fans. But that's just not enough. You can do so much better. Also, why the heck does every character on the menu have to have a little trademark on their name? It's irrelevant to the quality of the game. It just bothers me. TM.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so they're saying that Dragon Ball FighterZ, which came out more recently, is the same team that developed this game?
It seems like that's what, Arc Sys is what he's saying. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That game is considered a great fighting game by a lot of people.
I think a lot of DBZ fans say that is the first actual good fighting and actual good Dragon Ball.
It was at
Evo.
Maybe
just good fighting.
Yeah, it's a real fighting game. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think it was just a hardware thing then, because they clearly know how to make a good, DBZ and fighting game. But like the DS, they weren't there yet. It wasn't ready. I don't know.
And then Repugnant said, having played titles such as Hyperdimension, Budokai, and FighterZ, there's no doubt I'd draw some comparisons to see if this was a superior title in contrast to its source material, and most importantly, if it captured the fights and feelings of Toriyama's classic manga. As expected, as excited as I was for this week after playing the first Supersonic Warriors title in my childhood, it's hard to defend a nearly flight-exclusive fighter that substitutes sharp gameplay and visuals for something so weightless and shallow. Some of the sprite animations were appealing in the sense that their body movements match the aerial combat of the show, but it's too sluggish and vapid. To warrant a further comparison than that. Although not quite the stinker that episode 163's GT Final Bout was, I'm fairly certain that, like the spelling of Dragon Ball, this beloved series will have taken 2 L's in the catalog of NGP.
Okay. I like it. I don't remember GT, that game we played. I completely blacked it out from my memory. I don't remember it. I just know it wasn't good.
Kenny, do you remember it since you're a big Dragon Ball fan?
I'm not, and very vaguely, but I think I would have remembered it if it was enjoyable, which means I'm kind of in Nolan's camp here.
If I recall correctly, it was primarily a ground-based fighter.
It was.
And it was 3D. It was PlayStation, so it was 3D. It wasn't good.
Yeah,
it wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
But it was more like and I don't even know if there's a story mode. I think it was more traditional, like you pick this fighter and the CPU picks this fighter and you if I remember correctly. Hey, thank you for sending in your thoughts on the Retro Game of the Week. You can do that each and every week to ngppodcast@gmail.com or hop into our Discord. We've got a commentary channel there. We love to include your comments as a part of our commentary in future episodes. But for now, we're going to set aside Supersonic Warriors 2. We're going to continue to play Kakarot this week, and we're going to randomly select the next retro game from our Retro Master list. Randomizing now. Come with me to 1992.
No. Okay.
We're going to the kiddie pool. We're going to the kiddie pool. Kenny, you're going to love it.
Weird. Can we abandon this analogy?
Nope. No. We are going to be playing this game on the Nintendo.
Oh,
don't call it that.
Yeah, the Nintendo.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. It was a game developed and published by Capcom. And it is a game in a series that in a franchise at least, that we have played before on the show.
Okay.
With all of those things in place, we're going to be playing a game that combines adventure elements with side-scrolling action in a macabre fantasy setting. The game that we're going to be playing is called Gargoyle's Quest II: The Demon Darkness.
That sounds pretty metal. I'm not familiar. I feel like I should know this series.
You will. It is a part of the Ghost and Goblins franchise.
No.
Really? So it's going to be hard AF. Okay.
It's a prequel. Yeah. It's a prequel to Gargoyle's Quest. This is like that game. This is like Lufia 2. It's a sequel prequel.
Oh my goodness.
It's an
I'm scared though, guys.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Ghosts and Goblins came out in 85. Ghouls and Ghosts came out in 88. Is that what we played?
Right.
Ghouls and Ghosts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in 90, it was Gargoyle's Quest Super Goals and Ghosts in 91, and then Gargoyles Quest 2 in 92. So that's how it.
Okay.
Interesting.
I wonder if this is on the Switch Online NES catalog. I want to say I've seen a Gargoyles Quest on there. I'll have to check.
It might be. We'll have to
And
look.
it also might not be.
True. It either is or it isn't.
Find a copy of Gargoyles Quest 2 and play it along with us this week.
Join our community. Leave commentary on Gargoyles Quest Trace? Is that what you said? Discord.gg/New Game Plus.
Thank you to those of you who support our ongoing podcast efforts at patreon.com, including our director level supporters who go way above and beyond, Bro Jim and Garlisle. Appreciate you guys so very much. We also have a large list of producer level supporters who get all kinds of cool perks, so maybe consider joining them. They include these people: Amarlian, Antonin, Ben, Brunt, Captain Protein, Dan, DB Hauser, Francesca, Gimbin, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Knickknack, Corey, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Nawal, Sajan, Shauna, Thomas, Unbedavable, William, and Zion. Thank you guys so much for your support.
Thank you. You can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All those links are in our show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Congratulations and welcome on your first child. Join us next week as we play Gargoyles Quest 2. Until then, I'm still Kamehameha!
I'm Kenny.
I'm Majin Buu.
And this has been New Game Plus.